Let's turn to this now. The Competition Tribunal has approved the Takatso Aviation-South African Airways deal, but with conditions. The proposed measure will see Takatso acquiring a 51% stake in the state-owned airline. Let's get reaction now from the South African Cabin Crew Association President, Christopher Shabangu, who, of course, was making submissions at that tribunal. In May, we saw the Competition Commission approving this particular deal with the conditions that, one, there be a moratorium at least on retrenchments, and two, particularly that the stakeholder or the stake that is held by the minority consortium be sold. Now, you made representations in that two-day tribunal. What was key to your representations around this deal?
Good evening, Polani, and good evening to your viewers. First of all, I must just say that, we're just seeing this now, today, that, the Competition Commission has approved this deal. But there were some conditions that were, that we raised and were accepted by the tribunal when we were at the tribunal, as you might remember. And to us, what is most important is that there were agreements that SACA, NUMSA, and other unions had entered to with the department, with the DPE, to deal with the issue of the employees that were on TLS. We're talking about 1,000 employees that were on TLS. And secondly, there was an agreement that after the business rescue, the airline will start with about 1,000 people, not with about, with 1,000 people. Now, conditions precedent, meaning that before this deal is approved, as it stands right now, before this deal is approved, and this is what the tribunal actually required from Takatso, was to say, you're going to stick to the deal that you agreed with the unions of employing those people that are in TLS. You're going to agree with them. You're going to employ them as the airline grows. Now we have a problem because at the moment we haven't received any communication from the Competition Commission telling us that they have conditionally approved the deal to say that our conditions are going to be catered for at the moment. We are a bit panicky because it's quite important that those deals, or at least that agreement, is adhered to. So as unions, we are absolutely, particularly SACA, we are a bit panicky because we want to see that happen.
So
yes.
You're saying key to your representation was the maintaining of a particular level of staff within South African Airways, and it seems that has somewhat been put here to say, well, there should be a moratorium on retrenchments. Is that something that would be acceptable to the Cabin Crew Association?
Look, to us, the most important thing is for people to work and to get more jobs. Is the airline going to be able to hire more people? Absolutely. I mean, as I speak to you, they have advertised a new positions for more staff. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like they have catered for those people that are on TLS, people that have been let go, which we agreed the first.
So explain to us, Advocate, TLS. What do you mean, people who are on TLS? What's the agreement?
Okay, so what happened is that when people were retrenched, there was about 1,000 people that were put on training layoff scheme.
Yes.
Those people were put there, and the idea was that they're going to be trained by South African Airways whilst they're on training layoff scheme, and they were never trained. And again, when the airline was to start up again, they were the first people to be considered or to be hired into South African Airways. And as it stands at the moment, that's not the case. So what we are trying to do as a union, to be honest with you, is to try and engage South African Airways. And I can tell you for now, as much as we're receiving this news today, we have some kind of positives of believing that the South African management currently that's there, I'm talking about the chairperson, Mr. Hanekom, Professor Lamula, the CEO, the acting CEO, we believe that there's a possibility that we might be able to talk to them and try and see how we can adhere to the agreements that we have with the DPE and with South African Airways. So that's to us, that's the most important. We're not too worried about Cyrenix and their 10% and Global and their 10% at Takatso. It's not a big deal to us. What's the biggest deal to us is to make sure that South African Airways gets back to its former glory as it's beginning to do so, we believe. And it sustains job and hires more, but we're saying hire the right people, the people that lost so much and suffered so much when South African Airways went through the restructuring process.
Now, according to the rescue plan, the workforce had to be reduced from about 4,700 to only about 1,000. They're saying this is an effort, of course, to save the airline. Is that what the bone of contention is?
Yes, that's where it is. You got it right. So it was reduced to 1,000. But when the airline started, it didn't start with 1,000. It started with about, let me say for now, and this is just, I'm just throwing numbers, but it was less than 600. It was about 500 or even less it started with. The numbers today, as we understand it as SACA, is the numbers are standing at around 700 and let's just say 768, 770. This is just the number that's there. Now, that's below the number that was agreed to during business rescue. So that number needs to be fulfilled, meaning that we have to get to 1,000 first before we can get to anywhere. Of the employees that were always and had always been there at South African Airways, not new employees that you get somewhere else, but the employees that had always been there. Now, after that, you have another 1,000 that you have to hire from as the airline grows, and that's not the case. That's not happening at the moment. And we're hoping to engage the money in Airways to try and see if we can come, because we're tired of going to court when we can sit down and talk and try and see what are the challenges as an airline, what's causing them not to be able to do that, and then that we are available. We are trying to make some kind of engagements with them, in which we hope it's going to come to some kind of a fruitful engagement with them.
So according to this particular deal, of course, in terms of the deal, the consortium, to obtain this 51% stake would also need to inject capital of 3 billion over 2 years. Now, many people have been saying up until this point, they've not seen a cent from this consortium. What's your view?
I thought we've been making noise about that. And I'm going to just be open to you and tell you the truth is how we feel right now. We've been open because that's a national issue. It's not just a union issue. It's a national issue. It's something that concerns you as Kodade, because it is about your airline and your money that is happening. So it's an airline that belongs to the country. We as unions right now, what I can tell you is that I think it's becoming very clear that there's really very little that we can do to stop this deal. Powers that be wants this to happen is therefore going to happen. We can cry all we want, but what is important to us and what we're going to be fighting for, and that one I can give you, I can promise you, we will fight tooth and nail, is that all those people that have been promised jobs, at least whatever happens, whatever deals that they do is fine, but those people should be able to come back to work. It might not be all of them, understandably, but those people should be able to fight, to go back to work, and that I can promise you we will fight as hard as we can. Fighting simply means to us for now is that we'd like to rather engage with the SAA management and find strategic ways of bringing these people back. But please do not sideline these people, because that one we can't take. We won't take that. With regards to the 3 billion that we're talking about, we've been raising issues about. The fact of the matter is that South African Airways was sold for 51 rand. Anything else that you're going to come and tell me that there's a 3 billion that is going to be put in there later when the airline makes money, I'm not an accountant, but what you are telling me is that you are saying the airline is going to make money. When it makes that money, it's going to come back then to the SAA. It's going to be credited to Takatso, because presumably Takatso would have run the airline or would have ran the airline. So it doesn't make any sense. I don't want to even concern myself with that for now. What I want to concern myself, or what we want to concern ourselves with, is to make sure that at least whenever all of that happens, people are back at work.
Appreciate your time. Thanks, Advocate. That's Advocate Christopher Shabangu there, representing the South African Cabin Crew Association.